Now, there are a lot of different balance takes in Overwatch, and some are actually good that would really solve many of the problems in Overwatch 2, but others are terrible, and they would literally lead us down a path to oblivion. Now, in this video, we got all your hottest takes, and we're gonna rank them either good take, trash take, or skill issue. So we're gonna jump right in, but first, a word from our sponsor. But first, special thanks to the sponsor of this video, Gadget Discovery Club. GDC sent me 2 different boxes, so let's take a look. So a product I really like that I got is actually called the Momo Stick, and basically it's something that you apply to the back of your phone like this. Also included are these Neura Buds, which I searched up, and they're actually really expensive and high quality, and I have been really needing a pair of wireless headphones, so I'm gonna test them out right now. So this is how the service works. There are quarterly boxes of all different kinds of themes, whether it's tech, everyday carry, travel, and every single box has 4 gadgets inside and is guaranteed to be worth at least $125. You also get an online account so you can easily cancel, skip, or change the shipment date. Now, I love having that Christmas feeling any time of year when you get a box in, like, of random goodies that I know I'm gonna like, and I would highly suggest you go check out the Gadget Discovery Club, and using my code in the description and link down below, you can get $20 off your first order. So what are you waiting for? Check it out down below, and thanks again, Gadget Discovery Club, for sponsoring this video. Now, right off the bat, we're getting pretty controversial because Flair says my hot take is Overwatch 2 is better than Overwatch 1. Now, there was a follow-up to this by Leon that says it is better, actually. No one wants to go back to the double shield shooting simulator, wow, say that 3 times fast, and hard CCs. Now, in a lot of ways, I disagree with this take. Why? Because it's the same game. Overwatch 2 is actually Overwatch 1, but all jokes aside, I actually do think that a lot of the changes they made to Overwatch 2 were for the better. Like, there are definitely some really obvious bad ones and some controversial ones, you know, going to 5v5, increasing the power of some of these super sustained abilities, and overall not really nailing the balance in the way that they could, but, you know, they kind of did a lot of the same stuff in Overwatch 1. And while I understand that the meta is kind of frustrating right now in Overwatch 2, there have been a lot of frustrating metas in Overwatch 1. Like, there were some metas in Overwatch 1 that were just so frustrating to play. Like, I can't even describe how pissed like I was just playing the goddamn game back then. There were some really frustrating metas, you know, shooting double shields, dealing with freaking crazy Doomfist CC metas. We had to deal with freaking goats for the longest time, which was kind of fun at the start and new and interesting, but it got old really quickly, and we stayed in it for like a year and a half. Like, there were definitely really highs and really lows in Overwatch 1, and Overwatch 2, I feel like for the most part, things have kind of been flat. I would say like this meta in particular has probably been the worst we've been in, but for the other metas, it's actually been fine. And the more frequent updates and the more frequent balance changes are like what most people want it just at the base level that we never really got in Overwatch 1. We got it very infrequently. So yeah, I think that this is kind of like a reasonable take. I won't say it's right because I don't 100% agree with it, but I'm not going to say it's wrong either because I think it's kind of on that edge. So I'm going to give it, you know, a good take. I'm going to give it a good take. You could agree to disagree, but I don't think that this is so scalding hot that is like, you know, a trash take or skill issue or anything like that. Next up, USA said, I would like to see some changes to Echo. I believe she should have 150 shield health and 50 regular HP. The duplicate nerf going into Overwatch 2 should be reverted. She should be able to duplicate one of her teammates. So there's a couple of things in here that I like and a couple of things I really don't like. I'm not really the biggest fan of giving her that much shield health. Now, I could understand maybe 50 shield health and 150 regular HP. That's a little bit more reasonable than being able to get down really, really low and then get back up just by, you know, cutting line of sight, which Echo can do better and easier than most other characters. So I don't know about that one. That's a little bit OP. And also, Echo is like just a fine character. She's actually pretty strong right now, so I don't necessarily think she needs that severe of a buff. And the duplicate nerf going into Overwatch 2 should be reverted. I could see that. I could see maybe they start off with like a little bit of a buff to it, like a little tiny buff, but not completely revert it yet and see how it works. I don't want to just like bring it all the way back to how it was before, but I definitely think it's a little bit underpowered and a little bit easy to deny. And then the last one is she should be able to duplicate one of her teammates. 100%. That's a fucking great great take. I freaking love that. And yeah, that's definitely like a fire take, good take. The other ones, I'm gonna kind of put, you know, at least the first one probably in the trash tier, but you know, it's like on the edge. Now, the response to this was the true hot take that said, Echo's fine, it's Pharah who needs the shield buff. What is this guy smoking? I'm sorry, Jay Reeds. You are, oh, Jay Reeds 420. There you go, you are smoking, because what the fuck is that take? Like, that is not right. Pharah getting a shield buff? Are you kidding me? Holy shit. I don't even think I really need to explain that. Like, that would just be, I mean, yeah, do I really need to explain? Like, what? Okay, no, I'm not going to. Next up is Jackson, and they said, my hot take is that if we can't do 6v6, then can we at least get 2 tanks, 1 DPS, and 2 supports? Unlike 1 tank, having 1 DPS won't put all this pressure in the role because they can still play their same style depending on the hero, and with supports being so strong, they could also help with damage. Tanks will also have their duo partners again. I just think it would work better. Now, I do think that this could be an interesting idea. I actually think that it would create less unfun experiences with 2 tanks, 2 supports, and 1 DPS, right? Because right now we're having the biggest problem being the 1 tank is having a shit time, right? With the supports having all this utility, they're just dumping out of the tank. The tank is just having a very, very miserable ass time. And having 2 of them, one to mitigate, them to balance the roles out, it would be a more enjoyable experience. The DPS can be very flexible and kind of do their own thing, so they wouldn't be having a bad time. And the support, they just have all this powerful utility that they got as of Overwatch 2. So I do think that this would be a more fun system for everybody than the one we're currently in. But there is one key problem. And even though this isn't necessarily a balance problem, this is a logistics problem that you have to solve. What do you do about DPS being the most popular role when you only have 1 DPS? The queue times on average for DPS would be insane. With an extra tank that needs to be filled and just the DPS role being reduced to 1, DPS players would have to wait like 15-20 minutes, and then high-ranking DPS players would be even worse off than they were back in the end of Overwatch 1, which, if those of you were there, if you remember, if you were in Grandmaster Plus, DPS could take 20-30 minutes to get in the game. I even stopped playing DPS altogether back then because I was like, why am I gonna wait this long to play? Like, I'm gonna get freaking like 2 games done in like 2 hours. Like, what am I doing? Now, part of this is just because people really like to play DPS automatically. It's the one that kind of syncs up with the most other FPSs, and it's just gonna be a popular role just based on what the role is, and historically it's gonna be popular. But another reason is one you can't really solve right away. The DPS role has so many characters, right? And if you make a role that has all these characters and you reduce it down to 1, you're just automatically going to have these problems. You can say, oh, we just need to make more tanks and more supports. How long is that going to take? Like, if you wanted to do this, they would have needed to like print, you know, like give us freaking 5 more tanks, 5 more supports, and then yeah, we're down to 1 DPS, but there's all these new hype characters on these other roles that all these people can try. You know, that they could have maybe done that. In the current state, I think that even though I think this would be a more enjoyable experience than what we're in, it would definitely logistically be a freaking nightmare. And you might say, oh, I don't give a fuck about DPS players. They can wait as long as they want. Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna do that, though, people are just gonna start leaving the game. There's a lot of other games that people that already like the DPS role could play. And the last thing that you want is those people to leave and go do other things. That's not what you want for the future of the game. Now, the next one is Domo-kun, and he said, I've been thinking about it. What if 6v6 came back, but instead of double tank or triple damage, what if they made a 4th role specifically for a new off-tank / enforcer role, built for characters meant to act as a bridge between tank and DPS? Let them have less health than a main tank, but also have some fun abilities to back up a tank and impact the fight. This could help solve the tank problem. Yeah, I actually like this. I actually really like this. I think this is an interesting creative solution. Where you add in this new role, they're not going to have all the same bells and whistles that a main tank would have, but they would be able to, you know, maybe be more mobile or be able to deny plays better, you know. And this was kind of what the off-tank role was back in Overwatch 1, but you could give them more established roles. And I've kind of said this in the past where I think that every single role should have more established sub roles as well, you know, instead of just having like a DPS and they all have the same passive, has like sub passives, maybe 3 different sub roles in the DPS role, 3 different sub roles in the support role. Maybe there's not enough supports yet for that, but you could have maybe 2. And then if you did go back to 6v6, you could add in, like you said, another 4th role. And I also don't even think that we need to just stay with 3, DPS, support, and tank. I definitely think there could be more roles, like in general. Definitely an interesting idea, and there's definitely a huge rabbit hole of further ideas using this concept that I'm interested in. I haven't really thought about it fully. I am wondering though, how difficult would it be for us to go back into a 6v6 system? Like, is that even possible? Is there other problems that could come up? I know a lot of things would have to get changed and reverted and numbers and stuff like that, but is it even possible? Even if I do think that 6v6 is better, especially if it's like a modified 6v6, but is it possible? I don't know. Next up, Navi said they should give ult options to each character. And I've actually seen this suggestion a couple of times, and I thought it was interesting. Back in the day, you had ult options with Sim. You could actually do 2 different things, a shield generator or a teleport, which was interesting, and I like that concept. And we haven't seen it since. And I think it would be really cool to have just a couple of various options. Maybe you do one option that's more on the flashy side, the skill-oriented side, and one option that is just like more guaranteed reliable value. The way that I would probably think about that is like, what if Genji had one where it's like his normal Dragon Blade, and then he has another that he can press that just slightly amplifies his damage for a certain amount of time. Like, you know, he goes Rage, and it's like, you know, it's like around him or something. And so like you could choose one or the other depending on the situation. Maybe you just want to, you know, have a superpowered neutral with a stronger dash and stronger shurikens for a certain amount of time, you know, 5-10 seconds, whatever the case may be. Or maybe you want to go for the higher risk play, the higher skill play, and that would be the Dragon Blade. And you could do this with a couple other characters where you give them options, one that's like more guaranteed simplified value, and then one that is more dynamic and flashy with a higher ceiling of value. I definitely think that could be cool. Yeah, and you could also take it in the direction where characters just get like double ults. I know that would be a lot of freaking additions to add to the game, you know, a lot of modifications and a lot of like other things. I think some characters could have it. Definitely an idea that I would love for them to revisit in a new hero that would come out. So yeah, hopefully they do. Now, Kevin says, hot take Genji rework, reduce that learning curve. His ultimate has become inconsistent compared to Soldier, Cass, or Mei, so make his ultimate similar to Hanzo, a super dash which is followed by a dragon, and make his dash work a bit like Doomfist Punch. Maintain the button for the usual dash or tap for stopping in front of the first enemy. Yeah, I'm sorry, Kevin. I'm sorry. I don't want to bully you too bad, but I'm going to give this a skill issue. We should not be reducing the learning curve on any of these characters, especially not Genji. That's just not what the character is, right? He's a character that is high skill, hard to learn. That's just, you know, that's just in his DNA. If you just make it so he's super easy, doesn't really make any sense. And I understand the idea of that his ultimate's being inconsistent. I get that. And I definitely think they could tweak his ultimate to make it more reliable. But getting rid of, you know, the blade altogether, making it so it's just a dash with the dragon followed behind, that's just incredibly lame. Like, a dragon blade is cool, and it's extremely fun to execute. And when you're learning Genji, it's really fun to learn how to dragon blade. Yeah, I don't think that they should get rid of that at all. And then with the Doom Punch, maintain the button for usual dash or tap. I don't really think that's necessary. Good Genjis can control the distance fairly well. You can always dash at their feet and then look up. I don't really think any of this is needed. So it's a combination of a bad take and a skill issue. I'm sorry. Next up is Parm that says, hot take, dive is the best and most healthy and fun meta in the game. You know, I'm going to agree with this. This is just my personal take. I don't think this is objective by any means, but I enjoy dive, and I think that dive is the most fun to play. I think dive is the most fun to play against, even if I'm not playing dive. Like, one of my favorite things to do on characters like Hanzo and characters like Zen and Ana even is play against dives, because I feel like they're constant skill checks, right? They're constant 1v1s, constant engagements, constant position checks. I really like that style of play, and I think that the game is at its best when dive is the best. Not to mention, dive is just really hard to set up without coordination. So if like it's dominant in Grandmaster, it's not going to be dominant in most ranks, and I think that makes it so that the format is healthy. The last thing that you want is like some type of brawl nonsense, poke nonsense to be meta at the highest ranks to play, and it's going to be meta everywhere because these comps are not hard to set up. You stand together, you spam, you walk together, and you attack. Like, you don't have to time anything properly. And I think that dive has a much higher barrier to entry, meaning that it makes it so when dive is the meta, when dive is the best, for most ranks, you can kind of play whatever you want. And it's perfectly reasonable to fully abuse a dive when they're not perfectly timed. Like, if you're a Zen and you get triple dove at the same time by like a freaking Diva, Trace, or Sombra, yeah, it's going to be like, oh, this sucks, right? But if that's not happening, which it's not happening, like, it's really not, like, that level of synergy is not happening in most games, even in the high ranks of play. You have windows to outplay them, and if it is happening, you have teammates to help you. Like, there's always things you can do, and I really do think that dive is the best. I think this is a good take, but I know that it's a controversial one. Not everyone likes the play pattern of dive, and that's perfectly fine, but I do think it's the most healthy. Next up is by QBCat that says, my hot take is that Ana is too strong for 5v5 and needs a nerf. It's really cheesy how one button can determine the outcome of a fight, and Ana has 2 of them. On top of that, Nano shouldn't make someone both insanely strong and also invincible. Take away the healing from Nano and maybe the defense reduction. And, you know, I am a little conflicted here because I do think that Ana is kind of like bread and butter Overwatch, right? She's really, really great at kind of showcasing what is possible in Overwatch, both mechanically difficult and has really powerful abilities. But I also agree that in a 5v5 environment, Ana is just a bit too strong, especially with one tank. I mean, can you imagine a world where we didn't have freaking Kiriko? Like, if Kiriko didn't exist, Ana would be just even more powerful than she already is, which she's just ridiculous still. And you gotta remember that Ana got a pass in a way that no other character did. When we moved over to Overwatch 2, they said that they're gonna be removing crowd control from every role besides the tank roles. If y'all don't remember that, that was a big article that came out. They were like, we're removing all the crowd control from every role. We're getting rid of Cass. We're getting rid of Doomfist. We're moving him to the tank role. We're getting rid of all the CC. But Ana gets to stay. Ana gets to keep hers. And the reasoning was that it was hard to hit. But the reality of it is, even though it's less effective on tanks, it's still super strong. And it's still like a powerful CC ability that you get access to that no one else gets access to. And I'm once again split here, right? Because I think that hitting a sleep on like a freaking Genji that's on your ass is amazingly, you know, satisfying, skill intensive, and cool, right? But on the same time, you know, nades, aggressive nades, sleeps, these things are not being used most of the time to stop these plays. They're used to be like, abuse the tank. So I'm a little conflicted. I'm gonna say that this is probably a good take overall, but I think that perhaps there's a creative compromise that makes Ana still really powerful and feel powerful, but maybe tweak her abilities to a point where she's not like that oppressive and, like this person said, not able to dictate the outcome of a fight with just an ability alone. Now, the next one is by Kirby that says Sojourn's kit should have been the Widow rework coming into Overwatch 2. And they go on to describe why this is, but I actually generally like agree with this concept where I think that if the developers had a little bit of hindsight with where they were going to push Widow, they should have reworked her in the past. Like, I think Widow could have easily become Ashe. Widow could have definitely become Sojourn. Like, Widow is going to need a rework, in my opinion. Like, she should. If they buff her back to how she was before and make her strong, then it's like taking a step backwards back towards the one-shotting problem. So they need to rework her, like, fundamentally. I've said this multiple times, and they had opportunities to just turn her into other characters, and they should have probably just done that instead and, like, you know, just reworked Widow and then made a new character in one of the other roles that are severely lacking in numbers of characters you can play. But, you know, I really don't think that the Blizzard devs ever really asked or took the opinions of any high-ranked player at all going into Overwatch 2 for any balance suggestions. So I've said this a lot in the past, and this is kind of a rant that I'm pretty passionate about, where in Valorant, they have a group of playtesters that are high-ranked players that play the game and grind the game from other games and from Valorant, and they brought in people to test the game from that are high rank in Valorant and other ranks as well, and they test balance changes and they take their advice on balance changes. So the balance changes aren't coming from some random players. They're coming from people that are actually legitimately good at the game. You look at Teamfight Tactics, and there's freaking Mort Dog, who's a great player at the game, who's the lead guy, who's making a lot of the development decisions, and TFT is better for it. It's so much better balanced in Overwatch, it's not even freaking close. And this is my problem, where if you asked any freaking Grandmaster Plus player back in Overwatch 1, they would have told you that Widowmaker was a problem already in her current state, and it was going to get worse going into 5v5. It was just obvious, but they didn't have any planning. They just left Widow the way she freaking was and brought her straight into Overwatch 2. Of course, they're gonna have problems. I know I sound pissed about this, but I kind of am, because it's obvious that they don't give a shit about their community or like what people want or say, right? Like, it's obvious. And it just tilts the fuck out of me. Like, I want to make a whole video rant about this because it's super annoying that they don't even look and see. It's like a lot of these problems could have been solved during the transition if they would have taken anyone's advice. But no, that's not what Blizzard does. Blizzard just waits for the community to get pissed about something that has been obvious that it should have been changed for the longest time. And then they change it. They're like, oh, the community is mad about this, let's tweak it. When it was obvious that there was going to be a one-shot problem already going into it. And not only did they not fix the problem that was automatically going to be a problem, they added more problems going into Overwatch 2 with freaking Sojourn one-shot with damage. I don't even know. Come on. It just tilts me. Sorry, I'm getting on a rant here, but I'm pissed. Next up is by user HP that says, very controversial take, bring back 2CP, remove push. And the response to that was, I think you meant bad take. Push isn't a bad mode. It's interesting to me how the general, like, opinion about push has kind of swapped over time. Like at the start, most people would have agreed with the remove push. Like a lot of people really hated it. There was Reddit posts about it. People generally disliked push, but that's kind of how it always goes when something's new. It takes some time to like fully learn, and we had so much more time to learn these other modes. So as time went on, I think people have liked push more and more. Now, I'm not saying that it's without its problems, and I'm not saying everyone likes it. I do think that a lot of times people are quick to make up their mind about something, and then their mind will change over time. Just like a lot of people made up their mind about push, and then now they actually like it. They enjoy it now after playing through it enough and getting a feel for it, just like they've gotten, you know, that groundwork with all the other modes and maps. Now, the last hot take in the video is by Jelly that says, delete Mercy. And the comments to this, first by Solar, says, cold take, my room is now the Antarctic. And Libel says, liquid nitrogen take. I mean, yeah, this is like not a hot take in any way. Like a lot of people say this all the time. It's not a hot take. Like, yeah, it's a take that a lot of people have, and there's an equal amount of people that are like Mercy fans. So it's just like, yeah, you know, it's not a hot take. Like it just isn't. But let me know if you agree or disagree with any of the hot takes in this video or any of my follow-up takes. I want to definitely hear what you have to say, and please check out the sponsor of this video. They really hooked it up and they're pretty sick. So go check them out right now in the links down below. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.